What am I to do?
Welcome to RazorBranding Podcast with Jackie Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandrusso.com. Hi, I'm Michael Russo, and I'm filling in for Jackie on this episode of RazorBranding Podcast. And we're going to be talking with Destin Ortego with Opportunity Machine. And I'll go ahead and welcome him in here. Nope.
There we go.
There we are. All right. I'm using the background doing this, Dustin, so I appreciate you letting me sub in for Jackie. We'll see.
Not ready for that close up.
Yeah. we'll try to make it work. No, and like I said, we're having this series, this marathon, entrepreneurs featured, and doing it all day long. And you're an ideal person to have to talk to, obviously, because you deal in this world all the time. You help entrepreneurs, you help business people get started and learn and be educated about the whole process. So maybe we can start there. Just tell me a little bit about Opportunity Machine and your role there with the company.
Sure. So Opportunity Machine is a business incubator, and we have levels of membership where people can come in, they can get access to a variety of different workspace, but it's not just the co-working space that you get access to. You get access to a variety of mentors who all have scheduled office hours where you can go through our app and say, hey, I really need some more support on marketing or branding, or I need some advice, or at least some intro advice to legal and things I should have set up, right? Because startups and small businesses, the last thing they want to face is getting into the legal tranches early on, and then spending way too much money on things that they didn't need at first, or not spending money on things that they absolutely needed to save themselves from spending too much money later on, right? Mm-hmm. And so we try to help with those initial things. And so I kind of like to kind of phrase it as a college level thing. So your freshman, sophomore level, 100, 200 level classes, we have like boot camps and do-it-yourself marketing series, and a lot of webinar sessions for that kind of stuff, right? So that way you can get, how should I be preparing my taxes, or, the things I should look out for. Do I need a contract for this, or what is a business model and exactly how does that structured? You can get a lot of that stuff up front, but then when you get further down the road and you need very specific help for the vertical that you're in, the type of industry that you're in, or your specific pain points that you're having issues with, then we have mentors who specialize in very specific things who you can sit down with as part of being a member, and really do those one-on-one sessions. You get really, really good specific information about your business. And so that's a lot of what we do. We also have an accelerator program in the healthcare industry, and we recruit a lot of startups from outside of the area for that, to give them access to a lot of the resources that we have here, and try and build up the entrepreneurial ecosystem that we have here, and kind of foster economic development and bring in new jobs and quality jobs to the area. But as far as the person who has a business idea and just needs to know where to go, the mentorship, the boot camps, and the variety of workspace that we have, and that peer-to-peer network of people who are in the trenches with you doing similar things is really kind of where I tell people to focus and start.
What are some of the myths that that you've figured out, like from people that are going into business, or misunderstandings, or things that people have going out that they should know about right away? If you were talking to someone who says, hey, I want to start a business.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say my first one, I don't know if it's the one that I see the most of, but it's definitely the one that when it's hardest to get people to change their mind on, is that your idea is worth zero, right? It's the implementation and execution that's potentially worth a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And most often people come to me with ideas where they've kept it in their head because they're really scared about sharing it, that somebody's going to go and steal it, right? And that is absolutely the wrong mindset to have, because coming in with an idea, if you keep it to yourself and you spend all this time, money, and energy on trying to execute upon that idea, you're probably never going to get there, because you're going to realize that you don't know every step that you need to take. And so you're just going to be spinning your wheels forever. And you're never going to get there. Or you're going to get to a point, and then where you have all this product, or you're offering this service that you spent so much money and time on, and then realize that no one wants it. And that you have to like backtrack and go back and change all these things. And so coming into like the OM or any other organization, or going and sit down with a mentor who could potentially help you on developing your business idea with an open mind, and not just thinking that you have the next $1 billion idea, and knowing that there's going to be some work in changing it, and that you're going to need to share that idea, and you're not going to be able to get everybody to sign an NDA, like kind of lumping all that into like one thing and saying like share your idea. That's one thing for sure. And don't think that your idea is the $1 billion idea. It's good to be positive about it, but it's probably not right out the gate, right? And then being willing to accept criticism and go and do the work on talking to people about your idea, because everybody's like, it's my baby, like my idea is my baby, and I don't want to be told that my baby's ugly, but sometimes it is. Sometimes you gotta do a little work.
You gotta hear it. You gotta hear that. Yeah, the truth. I have one of my son's classmates in college. He's it's college in Mississippi, and he we've been talking to him, trying to help him out, not a client or anything. He's just like, he had an idea that he had in school, and he's in graduating now and is getting his master's and whatnot. And it's not a bad idea, but he's like trying to launch it. And I told him, he wanted to bounce ideas off of us. And the only thing I could tell him was, I said, just be prepared that you're going to have to change everything before you're done. Everything that you think you have, the idea is still good, but how you get there is going to have to pivot all over the place, because I'm seeing all the obstacles just from the outside looking in, and I don't even know about his world, or what he's getting into. And I'm like, have you thought about this or this or this or this or this? And he's like, no, I haven't. I'm like, okay, the idea is still good, but you have to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another big thing too, is that you don't know what you don't know, right? And so we try to help with that. I think a lot of what takes people off, or what makes people give up on their idea, is that they get to a point where they're like, I don't know what the next step is, or I have 10 different paths that I could go down, and I don't know which one's the best to take. And then you get paralysis by analysis, right? And then you just like don't go anywhere. And so we hope that with the ecosystem that we're trying to build, right, it's not just OM, it's like SBDC, and like the Acadiana Angels and LIDA and One Acadiana and the city and the university, and all these organizations who are there and in some capacity have the ability to share knowledge or help businesses along the way. We want to connect all those and know when the right time, and help them understand when's the right time for you to go and meet with this person about specific things, right? Like the state has amazing tax incentives for startup companies that are developing IT or getting angel investment. But when you're starting out with an idea, like, don't worry about that right now. Like, focus on understanding if the idea is even going to be relevant, or if there's major tweaks that you have to make to it, right? So trying to figure out that path is essential. And thankfully, we have people like you and Jackie who are willing to give back, who run private organizations, but are willing to give back to these companies, and will set up mentor time, which I think is one of the most beneficial things, is like having mentors who have been through it, right, and are still going through it, who can sit down with you and say, yeah, like, I think these are the things that you're going to face. These are the things that we faced. This is how we overcame them. That may or may not apply to you, but it may give you a little bit more direction on where to go.
Yeah. And I think just to know that it's hard, if you're thinking it's easy, it's not. I mean, it's not, it's doable, but it's like, be ready for the ride, be ready for the journey, because there's bumps along the way, and if you're fortitude, like, it actually leads me to this next question, because I asked this to somebody the other day that Jackie was talking with for a podcast. But do you think that, you were born an entrepreneur with an entrepreneurial spirit? Like, or is it something that can be learned, because I know there's some, like, I'm not, like, I would never open something on my own. Just, I'm not that person. Like, I have Jackie, I have a partner who's very ambitious and outgoing and extrovert, and she can go kick open doors, I'll work hard, but I wasn't that person early on, Is it something that can be learned, or is it something that you just have to have a knack for?
I think, I don't want to say it's born with. I definitely don't think it's born with. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's definitely some people like, man, you were born with this day one, and you came out and you're like setting up a limit stand, like before you were able to walk, right?
Yeah.
But I definitely think that it can be taught. The skill sets can be taught. The skill sets can definitely be taught. It's whether or not you find an idea or something that drives you enough for you to take the risk, right? Because being an entrepreneur is all about taking risks and saying like, I'm not going to go for this comfortable 9-to-5 job. Like I've found something that I truly believe in, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. If you believe enough in it, then you're going to take the time forth to put that time forth into it. Right. And I think it's important to say that like, it's, I haven't really seen any entrepreneurs who were able to do it on their own. You got to build a cross-functional team. And I see plenty of teams who come in and their CEOs super extroverted and then their CTO super introverted, right? But the CEO could not do it without CTO and the CTO could not do it without the CEO, right? Because you have to have that salesman, you have to have that technician who builds it, who offers a service. And then you have to have those administrative people who come back and make sure that everyone's doing everything legally, right? So you really can't do it by yourself. So I think you can be taught the skills. It's just whether or not you find that why or that mission or that thing that drives you. And you say, no one else is doing it. And I'm so driven by this purpose that I'm going to go and do it myself, right?
Well, speaking of that, like if and this may be a hard question to answer, but not that you're pitching any certain industry or anything, but in our area, in Acadiana, in Lafayette, in the general South Louisiana, do you think there's, in your opinion, what's missing? Like if you were saying getting into a business or getting into something in this world, what is something that you would lean towards or stay away from? Oh, don't do this because there's way too many, or there's an opportunity here, and maybe it's medical, maybe it's something along those lines, like that you can move into in this area.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, but it's also a really tough question. It's probably good because it's a tough question, but because if you're starting up a company, and I've just said this, you got to build a cross-functional team. You got to find mentors and resources that can, hopefully help you out, right? And so oftentimes if you're filling in a complete gap, it's like called a blue ocean strategy. If there's like, it's wide open, there's not a bunch of sharks in the water trying to go after the same thing, then that's a great potential opportunity. But if no one's kind of going for that or has done that before, then you're kind of potentially left on your own to try and figure out, how to paddle along. And so it's, maybe looking at things that are kind of right on the edge, right? We have a really great healthcare ecosystem. So we just did an accelerator program where we brought in 7 healthcare startups, and half of them were medical devices and half of them were digital solutions, right? And so look, there's a lot of people in the healthcare industry here who are willing to give their feedback and willing to make those connections and willing to talk to people about their startup ideas and innovative things. But, if you're like way out there, it might be really difficult for them to adopt that idea or that concept, because shifting, government and healthcare and all that, like those are large boats to try and shift, right? So trying to find something that's right on the edge of like, it's familiar, it's easy to integrate into their system, but it's innovative and efficient enough to make a big change, especially in the long term. Thinking about things like that, like what are things that are not going to completely disrupt the oil and gas industry, but are going to make it far more efficient, right? What are things like doing the same thing for, I'll give an example. One of the startups that we worked with in that healthcare system, they have a highlight colorant. So these hospitals are already using these wipes to clean surfaces, right? So what they did was they didn't try and reinvent the wipe. They literally just made an attachment that sits on top of the canister and it spits out these wipes and it colors it blue. And so when you wipe the wipes on the countertops and the surfaces, it paints it blue for a few seconds. So you can see exactly where you disinfected, and then it disappears. And so like you can see exactly where it goes. That's not super disruptive. They're already using the canisters, they're already buying them. It's not super expensive to buy the additional tops, but it makes them far more efficient, and it lowers the amount of potential infections that you're going to face when kind of working in a hospital, right? So things like that, super elegant solution, not hard to integrate into the system, but has, tremendous potential.
Oh yeah, definitely. What what are your thoughts about, like, obviously we've had a really interesting last couple of years with a bunch of different things that everybody's aware of. What is it a good time right now? I mean, is it a bad time to start a business? If you were, it's like, hey, maybe wait until next year, or is this a good opportunity as we're kind of rising up a little bit and trying to fight our way back to some kind of normalcy,
Well, I will say if it's a good time or not, that's not slowing people down. I looked at the numbers today. Since October, we've had close to 20 new members come in.
Wow.
For membership, and they're all people with new ideas, or they're like, hey, I've been wanting to work on this idea for a long time, and I think now, for whatever reason, is a good opportunity. Or maybe they picked up like a hobby or something. They're spending a lot more time at home, during the pandemic, where it was like, more of a lockdown and people were spending a lot more time at home, and they were working on a hobby and said, you know what, like, I was reading more, I was doing more research, I was, trying out new things, and I got really interested in this. And now I want to do it as a business, or at least want to do it as a side hustle. Like, I hate the whole hustle mentality.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, people are trying new things, and they're not scared to, for whatever reason. I think maybe because a lot of people ended up losing their job or whatever, and it was something they never thought they would experience. But now that they have, they kind of come face to face with that fear, and they're like, you know what, like, I've already faced it, so I'm gonna take the risk now. Like, I feel like a lot more confident. So
yeah,
whether or not it's a good time, I mean, there's definitely some things that it's not a good time for, and there's some things that are like, there's a lot more potential for it now, because we've just kind of been flash forward into the 5 years into the future, especially for virtual things.
Well, I think that's where coming in and talking to you guys would be helpful, because you can get a pulse and a feel and bounce things off people, and people that you can trust, and say, hey, is this a good idea? What do you think? At least you're getting some good advice on where to go, and you could take it or leave it, but it's sound.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's if you're coming to us, and you should feel this way about any organization, any mentor you go talk to, it's your company. It's your idea. You do what you want to do with it. We're just trying to help you give the tools and the understanding of the process, to figuring out, what's the best way to make it sustainable and scalable, and a lot of that has to do with finding who the right potential customers are, and then going to them and saying, hey, like, what do you think about this? Like, would you use this? Would you buy this? And trying to understand and have them pick it apart. And then you build something that people actually want. And I think most people want to do that, right? They want to build something that benefits the community and benefits other people. And, I would hope that most people go into a business thinking, I want to do this to serve the community, or serve people, or solve a problem. And, obviously you need money to keep doing it. But I think if you do it well, and you do something that actually solves a specific problem for people, the money's going to come, but you can't have the mentality of like, this is $1 million idea. Like, it's going to be great.
Well, that brings me to, you mentioned the side hustle thing, which I do. I hate that term. I understand the need for it. I understand how people do it, but okay, does that connotation make you think, let's see how to put this, that you're shorthanding it, like you're not giving it your all, like you're just dipping your foot in it and you're just playing around with it, and that is almost wrong compared to the people that are doing it full time and really putting all their into it. You may do it well, but how does that end up, in the long run? And I'm not saying people do that, but because you can make, look, if you have a way to make some extra bucks, I totally support that. But from an industry standpoint, does that affect the players and the non-players and the people that are just shallowing, and the customers' trust in what they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the term side hustle, take it or leave it. But I think I'm a firm believer in testing everything that you do before you just jump right in. And there's a lot of people who have come to us with ideas for businesses, and like, somebody may come and say, hey, I want to start a bed and breakfast, like pre-pandemic, someone came and said, I want to start a bed and breakfast, but they had never worked in that industry before. They knew nothing about it. They just, like, it had been a lifelong dream. And I completely understand that. But you got to figure out, like, okay, what's a smaller version of that can kind of help me dip my toes into it to see if I like it, and like, let's say if you liked your full-time job a lot, then, why are you wanting to go and do this? And so maybe taking the time to, like, either change your full-time job to working at a bed and breakfast, or working on the weekends, just to see if if you like that type of service or like that type of industry or like the upkeep, or so that way you can understand more of the responsibilities of what goes into that, right?
Yeah.
And so while I don't necessarily like the term, I still firmly believe that people should, especially when starting new ideas in industries that they have no experience in, is try and do something. Don't quit your day job. Try and do something that lets you dip your toes in the water, so that way you get a feel for it and understanding if that's really something that you want to do, right? I mean, you were my adjunct professor in my undergrad degree for graphic design. I loved graphic design, and you were a phenomenal professor, and you really made me love it. Like, I love the concepts and the thinking and everything. But then whenever I got out and I started doing it as a day job, I was like, no, I don't want to sit at a computer all day and do this. Like, I love the creative aspects. I love parts of it, and I like the skill sets, but it wasn't right in line with what I wanted to do as a career, right? And I think a lot of people maybe jump ship too soon, and then they end up realizing, like, that's honestly, it's one of the, I think, top 3 reasons why startups fail is because the main founders lose motivation because it's not really something they're interested in.
Yeah, just, and it's like I said, I think it's hard because, and again, I support that too. Trying things out and feeling it out. It's just, I think in some worlds you end up with people that they don't take the responsibility of what they're doing seriously. So like, oh, I'm just gonna get out of this, and but you said you would do something, and someone believed you, and there's a connection there, right? And so you bail out of that. Oh, I don't like it, so I'm just gonna quit. Yeah. Or I'm gonna give subpar service, or I'm not gonna finish it the way I'm supposed to finish it. And now some other company has to deal with that mess. Like when they move on to the next guy, they're like, okay, I don't trust you now because the other guy was just not for real. You know what I'm saying? So there's consequences for things. I think people don't always think about that and how the ripple effect happens in industries and life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I go back to the motivational piece. Like, you have to really feel motivated about it. I think, in order to do it. But I see so many people do the, I got to work a full-time job. I have kids, I have a mortgage, I have to pay for those things, but I really want to try and go in this direction. So you have to just take responsibility for it, right? You just have to like go in. And I think a lot of the people who probably do what you're talking about, and I see that a lot too, where they'll start something and they're like, this isn't working, bye. And you had people that were using the service and relied on it to an extent that you kind of screwed over. I think a lot of those people go in with the wrong motivation. They go into it thinking like, I'm tired of working hard. I want to work like less than 2 days a week, and I want to make a lot of money, right?
Yeah, I want a parachute, and that's not always one.
Yeah. It's the wrong motivation going into it, and so that's really, I mean, you can't tell anybody like, hey, you're clearly not motivated the right way, so I suggest you not doing this. It really has to be an internal thing. People just have to be honest with themselves, and unfortunately, people who do it for that type of motivation probably won't do that as much as people who are going into it and saying like, no, like my mom was sick, she had this traumatic experience, and I think I can solve that by building X or providing Y, right? So it's just a motivational thing.
I believe we always talk about it, like, whatever success we have in this life that we've churned out over the years, because we had 4 kids and we had to. There was no, we had to continue to pay for them, so they got more expensive. So we had to keep working harder. So I think we're getting close down to the half hour. And like I said, these are just quick little chats that we're having today and all day long.
That's great.
But I really appreciate, I'll kind of leave with this. Is there any, what would you recommend, any resources, books or podcasts or things that people, before they even come to you, like, hey, read this one book, it'll change how you think about this, or anything offhand?
I think it depends on what people are trying to do. If they're looking at a potentially really scalable startup, especially if it's like a tech startup. Actually, I have some books right here. There's this one that's like really a manual. It's the Startup Owner's Manual. So if you're thinking about building a tech company, I highly recommend this one. I'll recommend this one to any company. It's called Traction. I think this is a really great book. I see a lot of people come in and say like, hey, what's your marketing strategy? They're like, social media. I'm pushing out on social media. I'm like, social media is not a marketing strategy. and it doesn't even work that great for some companies. Like, you don't understand, or different stages. And so this book, Traction, is by far one of the the books I'd recommend to any company, whether you're potentially a scalable company or you're just like, opening up a food truck, or, I mean, really anything can grow, has potential for growth, but it's just like how fast and what pace you're going to go. I think Traction is really great. And as far as other podcasts goes, I really love, especially for, I hate to use millennials, but younger generation, the Morning Brew newsletter is phenomenal. And then the guy who co-founded that has a podcast called Founders Journal on Spotify. It's great, short, sweet segments. A lot of really cool insight into new things that are going on in the tech community specifically. So
nice. Yeah, they I don't know, the last podcast Jackie did, I was just producing it for her, but she talked with Lauren Fellman. You familiar with him?
No, what company?
He is I'll have to, he is 21 Hats is what it's called. It's,
yes, yeah. Okay.
But he was fascinating. I know Jackie was a big fan of his and she followed him, but just hearing him talk and hearing how he approached things, and I know he had a big effect on her from a business standpoint, especially during COVID and things like that, advice. And but he has these like newsletters he sends out, but it was very impactful. Like I said, just hearing him talk, and he was smart, like the way he processes information and put it back out there. But
critical thinking, like anything you can read or whatever that helps you with critical thinking or thinking about things from a different perspective, I think is probably, the number one thing for a startup founder. You're trying to solve problems and you're trying to do it in innovative ways. So critical thinking is like extremely important.
And what's the status of the building? How's that going? It looks pretty good from the outside.
It's moving along. We got windows. We got some paint on it. We're really excited. It'll be sometime next year that we move in. But I'm really excited about it. We have, like I said, our membership's going up, so I'm looking forward to bringing a lot of new businesses to downtown. And I think it's going to be really great for the community. So I'm excited.
No, it looks like it's taking shape, so it's nice to see the progress on that. And like I said, I want to thank you for joining us today and for all you're doing for the community and the business leaders. You guys are a huge part of, you mentioned all these organizations earlier. Obviously you guys are such a huge part of I think of Lafayette as like a shining light on a hill in Louisiana. Like it's, so many good things are going on here that people don't even know about, and it's such a positive vibe. And we've flourished in this community as well, and very proud of that, because we had left, Jack and I, and came back home and kind of put our roots in here 20 plus years ago, and it's been one of the best decisions we've made, just being in this environment. And like I said, you guys are a big part of that, and having those opportunities and playing like big boy business, like we look like a real city, like we have real stuff here, and I think people don't know all the things that we have. Exactly. and y'all are part of that.
Yeah, like I said, we brought 6 companies from all over the country, and 2 weeks ago, and they were all telling, like, we were bringing them downtown and and around River Ranch area and the campus and everything, and they were like, man, we love the vibe here, like it's so cool, like would not expect this for whatever reason, and they're coming from Silicon Valley and Memphis and Dallas, and I'm just like, well, like what is it? They're like, people for whatever reason just seem far more friendlier. Like I'm not afraid to wave at somebody, and and the businesses just have some really cool, unique like vibes to them for whatever reason, So that was a truly proud moment for me, because that was completely unprompted. We're just taking them around, they're checking out places, and they're giving me that feedback, and I was like, that's great to know. Definitely.
All right, man, I'm gonna let you get back to it though. I appreciate it, Destin.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, man, we'll talk soon. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Well, the day is through.